Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot live stream. I am Alex Kozora. Joining me as always is Dave Bryan, SteelersDepot.com. Apologize for being a couple minutes late. Been a crazy busy day. Art Rooney, Dave, the bat signal went up as the live stream shows. Lot on his mind, lot to share. And so we'll talk about that throughout today's live stream. Of course, answer your questions, which I'm sure will be pretty much related to what Rooney had to say. So thanks for being here, Dave. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. You're the one that needs to be checked in on. Busy afternoon for you. There have been trying to cobble up some audio and all of Art Rooney II and all like that. Never a perfect time for that thing to hit, but it's never a great time when we got most of the staff at the All-Star games this week. But it is what it is. At least we've got a lot to write about and talk about this afternoon.
We do. So, Chad, if you could just kind of help me out, get our bearings down, let us know if you can hear Dave and myself, and you can hit the like button to get more Steeler fans in the chat. Again, we're here until 8 p.m. Eastern time, maybe a couple minutes over, depending on how busy the chat is. The more you guys ask, the more we answer, and the longer this thing gets to roll along. So just do a quick check-in on this, and then we'll get started. If you want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered, you can send a super chat and move to the front of the line, and a guarantee that we'll answer and share your question. No obligation to do so, but we appreciate those all the same. So it looks like you guys can hear us, and so we're good to go. And so we'll start things off with old friend Jason. He says basically what Art II said was nothing. Hashtag copy and paste. Yeah, I don't know, Dave. You're just give me like a Cliff Note, 30-second kind of big picture view on what Art Rooney had to say today.
All right, I'll try to roll through it. Sounds like going to be one of either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields re-signed. Does not sound like it's going to be both of them. That's obviously not a huge surprise. If I had to make my guess the way he kind of phrased things, it's probably going to be Justin Fields would be the one there. They would like to get a multi-year deal done and not just a one-year deal done. And on top of that, they've got a quarterback room to fill. They're not opposed to addressing the quarterback position in the draft, either this year or next year. But it does sound like more than likely, probably Justin Fields is who they're going to kind of concentrate on re-signing. But Rooney said it's unlikely that both those guys get re-signed. It does sound like Najee Harris, another non-surprise, is probably going to be allowed to test free agency. Probably have seen the last of him in a Steelers uniform. Art Rooney II talked a lot about defensive line and stopping the run. So another non-surprise. If you don't have a defensive lineman early in your mock drafts, you're probably doing it wrong there. Let's see. TJ Watt was asked about him. It sounds like they're going to try to get an extension done with him at some point during the offseason. Another non-surprise, this team has cash and cap space available to do that. So how that moves along and the timing of it probably yet to be determined. Talked about George Pickens and how there's growth needed there. Kind of hard to read in between the lines altogether, but I'm willing to bet they're not prime on giving George Pickens an extension, at least early in the offseason. Seems like they want him to grow up a little bit. Obviously, they're not happy with how the last season went, especially the last 5 games of the season. It does not sound like they're going to grow the coaching staff. He seems very comfortable with the size of the coaching staff, and the coaching staff size is not why they did not have the success they wanted this year. It sounds like there will be a few changes on the coaching staff, probably guys with some expiring contracts. It does not sound like there's going to be a lot of changes on the coaching staff overall. I'm sure we'll learn more about whatever those are in the coming weeks here. Trying to think of what else to add to it. I think I've got the gist of it right there, though.
Honestly, and I know year over year it's hard to think back and remember all the particulars that Rooney says in his annual year end wrap up with the media, this kind of tour he goes on. I thought he was more transparent and more open than he has been in past years. When you talk about, I want to keep at least one of Russ or Fields, and seemed to kind of show an inkling towards Fields over us, talking about Pickens, where it felt like, okay, this guy's definitely not getting an extension. Will he be traded? Hard to say, but we're not in extension territory, I think, in a posture from Pittsburgh. Even things about the reported trade talks that Chicago had with Pittsburgh about Mike Tomlin, and then Tomlin himself, and a couple other things as well, like you said, coaching staff not looking to expand that type of stuff. So, I mean, it's not anything that's going to make you feel warm and fuzzy, nor should it. Nothing you say after a historic collapse as Pittsburgh had should make you feel good about where this team is at. They got a bunch of things to work on, but it was, I thought, a little more transparent, but also still very much old school Rooney. Run the ball, stop the run. That's what he says basically every year, and that certainly held true this time around.
He did say his inbox has been pretty full lately. He has a sense of the fans' frustration. He shares their frustrations. Was very disappointed with the way the season ended. So he understands that. He understands why people are mad. He says all you can do is say, actions speak louder than words, and that we've got to be better there. Didn't sound too happy about what Jim Rooney had to say. He says, I hope he's selling something along the lines of hope he's selling a lot of books or whatnot. So he probably kind of tried, or it sounded like he just tried to. That's Jim's opinion, not mine, in so many words there. Did we learn more than anything? These are just confirmations. This time of year, and then you try to parse through everything in between the lines, especially when it comes to declarations of what the direction the team's going to go in the off season. And I think at its whole, none of that surprising, but we got that one of the two quarterbacks they want to re-sign probably going to be Justin Fields. It sounds like the key this year is stop the run, right? And he mentioned at one point that they seem comfortable with the linebackers on the roster. And if you're going to try to make a proclamation that you need to do a better job of stopping the run and you're okay with your linebackers, that leads you to the defensive line.
Exactly. Deductive reasoning there. So it's a good D-line class, and I think D-line's going to be an early thing to address, which we talked about really as the season came to an end. You allowed 299 to the Ravens, 186 to Henry, both records against Pittsburgh in the postseason. Get rolled by a AFC North rival to get bounced. There's going to be changes to your run defense, and they need it.
Right. And I think you could probably, we'll see what happens to Larry Ogunjobi. I've been kind of thinking he's going to be gone. I still think that even more now, but they need to revamp. They need to strengthen that defensive line. They need to come out of this offseason with a better defensive line. They've got to be able to not have Derrick Henry run for bazillion yards on him and all like that. And it wasn't just him either. They struggled at certain points this year of stopping the run, and that's the way that defense is going to get better, by stopping the run first. And I think they know that. So I would expect heavy concentration on the defensive line throughout the offseason. Maybe at least one early draft pick, maybe two. It's a good year to need young defensive linemen in the draft on top of it there. So I think that kind of speaks for itself. He mentioned that he kind of slipped up and said we're probably going to need to address the running back room, obviously the wide receiver room as well too. So I think running back could be in play during the draft. Obviously wide receiver is probably going to be in play during the draft as well. He did not rule out drafting a quarterback, but it's probably going to have to be the right quote unquote dart throw when it comes to that, because I think we both agree that probably not going to draft one in the first round overall, and probably not the second either. But anytime after the first round, it made it sound like he's open to it either this year or next year when it comes to that. So no, we did not learn a lot overall, but it's more, these things are more confirmation more than anything.
the this year or next year from Rooney on quarterback was a little telling, and probably an admission of the Omar Khan, the scouts telling him this quarterback class is not particularly strong, but still I
Right.
think there's a good chance, a decent chance, I should say, of them taking a day two type of quarterback, Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, Jackson Dart, whoever you want to put in the day two camp. I'm not giving every name out there, but those would be the names that we'll probably hear about throughout this process. Got a couple of super chats I want to get to. One from Adam Fritz with the 99-cent, $1 we'll round up super chat. I don't see a comment here. If I see you somewhere else in the chat, Adam, I'll certainly get to you, but we thank you for that. Got a $5 super chat from Kyle Smith, who says, if the Steelers keep the same staff, same quarterback, where does the change come from? I feel like this is the definition of insanity. And there's certainly validity to that. Tomlin talked about change, and Rooney, as you see on screen right now, expects some changes, but probably not going to get those at coaching. And frankly, no one should be surprised. You knew Mike Tomlin was going to return, right or wrong. If you hated the idea, I'm sorry, but Tomlin was going to return. Arthur Smith, unless he became a head coach with New York or Chicago, he was going to return. And Terrell Austin, the D coordinator, was the one guy you could argue, but I wonder how much that really moves the needle anyway, given Tomlin's influence on this defense. So I never really expected a lot of coaching changes. We'll see exactly where they end up, and then we'll kind of evaluate once we have that in the rear view mirror. But they did, as Rooney said, to be a little fair, they made a bunch of changes last year. They brought in a new OC, new quarterbacks coach, new wide receivers coach, a bunch of assistants, etc. So there were coaching changes made pretty wholesale last year, and so you can't expect that to happen every single season.
I don't think nobody in their right mind right now should, where this team sits and where it looks like it's going from all perspective, from a roster, a coaching staff perspective, should think that this team has a chance to compete for a Super Bowl in 2025. It feels like, man, it feels like the whole goal is just get a playoff win at this point, right?
And Rudy said as much. He said, we played three of the best teams and two teams in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs and Eagles, and got blown out by all of them. And so he says, we're not there. Now, again, that's obvious, but it is, again, more transparency and more honesty than I thought we would get from Art Rooney, to be honest with you.
How much better would everybody be feeling right now at this point had the team, got into the playoffs and maybe, say, beat a Houston Texans team and then lost in the next round?
Yeah, you're not going to feel great, but at least you feel like, okay, that playoff streak and drought is over. There's been some tangible progress to point to. I think the most frustrating part for me, Dave, is so much has changed, and they really have changed a lot over this 8-year span, and yet the results always seem to be so similar. 9 wins, 10 wins, wild card, one and done, maybe divisional. If you had a really good regular season as it happened in, 2017, and then it's the same result in terms of the playoff loss. So it's almost remarkable how much has changed and yet how similar each result has been.
Right. You're going to have more change this year. I mean, you could see, as we've talked about already, you could see 50% of the roster, 53-man roster be different. It probably won't be exactly that much, but probably a good 40% of it could change overall in this thing. And you just wonder, how much better can they put the pieces of the puzzle back together to get one game further in this thing, and basically that's what we're talking about, right?
Right. That's where Pittsburgh is at until they find that franchise quarterback, because you're not going to compete with Mahomes and Allen and Lamar, and likely Burrow and the Bengals are going to be better next year and real playoff contenders as they have been in seasons past. You're not going to do that with a mid-tier at best type of quarterback. Should mention, and it caught my attention as I know it did you, Dave, with Rooney admitting we're going to have to look at the running back room. Really an admission, Najee Harris is not returning.
Right.
Which, again, confirmation more than revelation, but that's an indication there very clearly, I think, from Art Rooney.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect that to come they might add a low tier or two, very cheap veteran to try to compete in the room and all like that. They've already signed Jonathan Ward to a futures contract, and obviously they're going to put a second-round tender on Jalen Warren this offseason, so they'll retain him at some point during the draft. I imagine they're going to address the position again, and Probably Cordell Patterson out the door, and you'll probably enter the season with 3 running backs, one of which probably you should be able to pencil in right now as being Jaylen Warren, but the running back room will look different other than Jaylen Warren.
Let's get back to the reader chat and questions. Again, if you guys could hit the like button, would really appreciate it. Get as many people into the chat as possible. Mike Adesso basically asking anything stick out from Art. Kind of went over some of that. We'll share our thoughts throughout this live stream, and of course on the Wednesday podcast, our next episode, Dave and I will delve deep into that and probably have a thorough, long conversations about each of the major talking points that Rooney had, but probably addressed it pretty good, Mike, off the top already. Anthony Smothers says, what other O-line candidates are there to replace Pat Meyer? I have not looked at a list terribly much, Anthony. Until Meyer is actually gone, I'm not going to spend a lot of time researching on a potential replacement, and the winds seem to be indicating that Meyer is going to stay under the belief he's under contract through 2025, and Pittsburgh does not typically fire coaches. They just do not renew contracts, and so until we hear that Meyer is out, I'm not going to entertain too many thoughts and burn a lot of mental calories on who to replace him with.
What do you think about the answer? He was asked to evaluate Arthur Smith first season. He says, I think it's hard to manage a quarterback room with quarterbacks with such different styles. And so I think going into next year, I'd like to see us go with a quarterback room, whoever it is. You kind of have 2 quarterbacks that can run the same system. So I look forward to that being something that we can build on and that Arthur can build on in his second year here. He says, and then he praised the growth, and all said thought he saw some growth from Justin Fields, but kind of like he basically said he felt like they had 2 quarterbacks that couldn't necessarily run the same system.
Yeah, and maybe that was some of the consternation reportedly between Russ and Arthur Smith, although Russ downplayed those reports and concerns. I mean, I just think there was a lot of newness that Arthur Smith had to deal with and a lot of change throughout the season. Again, brand new quarterback room. Smith is new himself, new quarterbacks coach. You're really starting bare bones from scratch, taking Russ, trying to revive his career. You got Fields trying to build him up. Not only different styles, but just different places in their career as well. And you're trying to handle them in different ways. And then Russ gets hurt, misses all of training camp. Essentially, Fields, gets all those reps. Looks like Russ is going to be your guy week 1. 3 days before the start of the season, Russ gets hurt again. Now it's Fields. Then it's Wilson week 7. Then Fields gets hurt late in the year. Can't use him situationally. Trying to juggle the quarterback package, which Pittsburgh did not do a good job of overall. It was just a lot to deal with in a first year, and so I can give some grace there, but obviously the ending was abysmal and can't absolve Smith in this offense entirely, being held to 17 points or fewer in 5 straight games for the first time since 1969. It's just, again, part of that historic collapse. All right, let's go. Jeremy Nelson says, how can we effectively evaluate the offensive scheme if the offensive line cannot open adequate run lanes or consistently keep the quarterback, whoever it may be, from always having to scramble around? We need improvement in the O-line, and that is fair, I think, Jeremy. The real big mark that Pittsburgh has to get right, quarterback A, obvious B, though, the development of this young offensive line, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Broderick Jones. They got to get these guys right.
Yeah, and what did he have to say about what was it? He was asked if running the football is still basically his what he does. Does he think that they can still running the football still be a way to win? He says, well, I mean, look, it's interesting that we have 2 teams in the Super Bowl with such different styles. So I think it shows you can win with more than one approach. And I think the bottom line is you got to try and win with the talent you have in the building. And they have sort of 2 different kinds of talent in their buildings, meaning those 2 Super Bowl teams, the Chiefs and the Eagles, he says. And so it'll be an interesting game. We've got to build on the strengths that we can put together in our room. And I still think that running the ball is a route to success, particularly when you're playing in the north and outside, things like that. And then or somewhere during the talk with the media today, he talked about how he's hoping the offensive line can take their next step. And look, I mean, this team has obviously invested a lot in their offensive line in the last couple of drafts. If they do anything at all in this year's draft related to the offensive line. You would think it would maybe be a guard at some point within that, but basically I think what you see is what you get, especially if they don't move on from Isaac Seumalo. I think I think those, you're obviously going to have Fautano at one spot, Broderick Jones probably at left tackle, Seumalo at left guard, Frazier at center, and probably Mason McCormick at right guard. And you better get that unit do a better job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's less about needing to add some big cornerstone piece as they've tried to do in recent years, and Omar Khan has really had this all-in focus on the offensive line, no doubt influenced by Andy Weidel from Philadelphia, and the way they built up the Eagles was becoming one of the best trench teams in the NFL, and still are with their O-line and their defensive line. And so they got to develop. They got to get these guys right. Frazier, of course, looks promising. Fautanu, jury's out on. McCormick had a good rookie year. Still work to do. Broderick Jones has certainly regressed and really had a tough season overall. He's got to be a whole lot better in 2025. And so that's going to be really the true mark of where this team can start moving towards, is based on, because if they screw this up on the O-line, these guys don't develop, man, that's going to be a real eyesore this team's going to take a long time to recover from.
Yeah, look, I mean, the only quick way to fix that kind of stuff is through free agency, and we know that, even if there are quote unquote active in a free agency period, it's hit here and hit there. They never usually go all in on that, so you have to go back to the draft once again, and they've got a lot invested in it. If these guys don't pan out, it's going to cost. It is going to set them back. So yeah. They better hope that they've got those right guys in place. Obviously, it looks like Frazier's going to be a good player, and I think McCormick can build on what he's done. And we haven't seen Fautano much of any so far, so you hope he's the guy. And if you miss on any of them, you probably, I guess, at this point, probably hope it's maybe Broderick Jones, and you're going to find that out quick in 2025, and then maybe you go back and have to readdress the tackle position again.
Yeah, but man, missing on a left tackle that you traded up for. Not that it was a huge trade up, but Omar Khan's literal first pick. Tough way to start there. David O, our own David O, says, only commitment I heard was in Tomlin. Everything else on the table and indicated either Fields or Wilson, not both. Running game, frustrated, and sees the gap between the team and higher performing teams. Fair overall. I mean, that sums it up pretty well, David O. Let's see, Captain Spartan 04 says, before I start, I hope y'all doing well. First of all, my luck has been terrible lately. Got sideswiped today, and Dryer broke this weekend. I know y'all are still very early in this process, but do you think we should target wide receiver in the first round instead of D-line? This class is much deeper at D-line than wide receiver or corner. First of all, really sorry to hear about that. All your bad luck there, Captain Spartan. Hopefully you're okay in that sideswipe today. Sounds like you are, but we're sending you good vibes, and hopefully things turn around for you the next coming weeks. Dave, what's your take? It's a fair question, I think, from Captain Spartan. Receiver, D-line, that may be one of the biggest discussions we have leading up to the draft. Which position should Pittsburgh target at number 21?
I think it could go either way, and whatever one you don't address in the first round, you turn around and get the second round. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a lot of the discussion moving forward with these mock drafts and speculation moving forward. Here is it a wide receiver? Is it a defensive lineman in round one? And whatever you don't get in that first round, you're probably going to get the other position in the second round, at least this far out. Now, obviously, we tend to get signs as you go into the offseason. I would not be surprised to see them put moderate free agent patches on both of those positions, both wide receiver and defensive line, but not go over the top with that as to prevent them from addressing the position or positions in the draft as well too. But if I were to kind of have to make a high dollar bet right now as to what the first two positions they will draft in the 2025 draft would be, I would say defensive line and wide receiver, whichever order you want to put them in.
Yeah, probably not going to be a wrong option. It's going to likely be similar to the tackle center discussion that we had in 2024's draft, and they ended up going tackle in the first round and center in the second round. Could be similar between receiver and D-line. So it's going to depend on the board and scheme fit and system fit and all that kind of stuff. I would just say that you got to be careful. Sometimes, yes, those positions are deep, but the deep positions get targeted more often because there is a strength there, and almost every team needs pass rushers. Every team can use D-line help, and so even if you have a strong dozen group of guys there, that pool can run out pretty quickly if there's a big run, and so you just want to be mindful of that as well. But fair question, and again, something we'll probably talk about continually throughout the offseason leading up to April's draft.
And then somewhere within there, probably in the first 3 picks, probably going to have to think about a cornerback, right? Slot or even outside or even both in this draft on top of it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some people trying to shoehorn a second-round cornerback in there and in their mocks. And some people, because of the defensive line class being deep, maybe trying to wait until the 3rd round on the defensive lineman. But I think those are 3 positions that seemed, and we just already talked, we expect this team to draft a running back at some point,
and look for a quarterback,
and maybe try to look at a quarterback as well too. So
that 5-pound bag filling up with 8 pounds of needs pretty quickly. Of course, free agency will likely take away some of the urgency at some of these positions. Pittsburgh will be flush with cap space, and so the free agency main wave comes before the draft and can maybe plug some of those holes. Mark Cunningham, I believe the O-line, which consisted of 2 rookies and a second-year tackle who is younger than both rookies, gained valuable experience this year. In 2 years, the O-line will be the strength of the team, hopefully. I hope. Pittsburgh needs it to be the case. Again, given all those investments, back-to-back first-round picks on tackles, you take 3 offensive linemen in the top 4 rounds this year, and so they got to get these guys right. If they do, then you're really in a good place to add a quarterback and get your offense to really take that step ahead. If not, again, you're back to the drawing board because Pittsburgh has not had a good offensive line in years, really since that golden age of Pouncey and DeCastro, Villanueva, Gilbert to Filer, Foster, and that has been a long time. Those guys have all retired, and so it's been overdue in Pittsburgh.
You better start seeing it early next year from that unit, period.
Let's see. Ronald Hall, besides quarterback, what position do you see the Steelers spending money on in free agency? I think wide receiver, potentially corner. What else comes to mind, Dave? Or if you want to add on to those positions?
I think you hit on it right there as far as dollar, higher dollar kind of spendings, potentially corner, potentially wide receiver. Oh, let's see. I mean, I can't see them going out and spending money at the tight end position. Obviously, running back position will probably come during the draft at some point. We talked about if they do anything with the offensive line, probably a guard at some point. They're fine at outside linebacker. Obviously, they're going to probably cut Preston Smith, but I don't think they're going to spend high dollar at that position. Obviously, could you see them, get a more competent kind of backup free safety type, maybe in free agency at a lower price, maybe. But I would expect the dollar ads to potentially come at wide receiver, corner, and probably a moderately priced defensive lineman.
Yeah, I can see all those things. One thing, and it kind of overlays with our discussion right now, but they need, assuming Cam Sutton does not return, and Cam Sutton, God help us if he returns, they need that versatile 6DB that does help unlock a Minkah Fitzpatrick. I do think after Sutton came back, Minkah was freed up a little bit in the sense of being able to spin down and be used a little more creatively, because Sutton, even though he struggled mightily this year, he had the position flexibility to play deep half, deep middle. Wherever you needed Sutton to align, he was capable of at least doing that, even though the results weren't good. They don't really have that other guy on the roster right now. DeMonte Casey likely will not return. He's aging out. He's a free agent to be. And so can you find that veteran chess piece like a Hugo Amadi type of guy? I think Pittsburgh's going to need to make sure that Minkah can be Minkah and bounce back in 25.
Okay.
All right, next question. Mike Adesso saying that Dulac on SNR said the Steelers want the running back to get the edge, and neither of their backs can, and doesn't think any will be back next year. Wow, this is the first time I've heard no Warren back thoughts. That's the first I'm hearing of it as well. I'll have to go back and try to listen and find those comments. Mike, I thought Dulac had written a week ago that they expect a tender on Jaylen Warren. Maybe he has new information. Be surprising if the whole running back room, especially Warren, was not retained, though.
I would be shocked if they don't put a second-round tender on Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the reason would be to let that guy walk. Now, if you want to add a speed component and better for outside zone component, fair, but Warren offers so much in pass protection, receiver, energy bringer. You know, he looked good whenever he got healthy late in the season. I think it'd be a big mistake to let Warren walk.
I agree.
Let's see, what else do we have here? Bunch of questions. Kyle, I think Kyle is just he basically had a super chat about no changes. Bergen in the Alex, if you're okay with trading Pickens and replacing him with a Kirk, then the Steelers will be tanking next year. Not entirely sure where those comments come from. I'm guessing from our podcast today when I suggested the team could pursue Christian Kirk, considering they were going to trade for him this year before he broke his collarbone. First of all, just to be clear, I've not said to trade George Pickens. I've said don't extend George Pickens. I don't expect it to happen, especially off of Rooney's comments today. I didn't say replace Pickens with Kirk. I said they could potentially sign Christian Kirk and maybe still keep George Pickens. That was not an exclusive either-or type of situation. So just to clarify, I've not really said any of those things you're suggesting there.
And how's George Pickens going to act if he doesn't get a contract extension this offseason?
It's a great question, and it sounds like we're going to find out, Dave.
The only way to not find out is to trade him before the draft.
Right, because I don't think they're going to extend George Pickens. That seemed pretty clear from Rooney's comments today.
And, George Pickens is getting a minor raise this offseason due to the proven performance escalator, but it's obviously nowhere close to what he probably perceives his value to be. And well, I can tell you right now, if he survives and is not traded by the draft time, I would not expect him to show up at OTAs, obviously. And nobody should criticize him if he doesn't, because those are volunteer sessions. Even though people will criticize him for it, we'll write about him not being there if that is indeed the case, and continue to talk about how he's probably not happy with his contract. And then obviously the closer you get into mandatory mini camp and into the start of training camp, could he potentially be one of those guys that attempts to have one of those hold-ins? And let's say he makes it to the start of the season and he does not have a new contract in hand. How is he going to act once the season gets underway?
Great questions. Don't have the answer. Not even sure if George Pickens has the answer to that right now, but could he take a page from the Brandon Ayuk playbook and do the social media thing and go on podcasts? Potentially. I don't know. Nobody knows, and that is the unknown of it all, I suppose.
And that's why we talked about at the beginning of last season was get prepared to talk about George Pickens a lot this coming off season.
Yay. Super excited about that. Mark Cunningham, hey guys, is there any truth to the reports that TJ didn't want to move around in the defense? I did see him actually say he's willing to do it moving forward. I think Watt during the season, not that he said he wouldn't move around, but he was comfortable on his side. He liked his side, and I think that's why Pittsburgh did not move Watt around. Highsmith also was comfortable on his side. So I think with the whole offseason, for him to train and become a little more competent and comfortable on the other side, of course, he played right outside linebacker in his rookie season, but the moves he likes best don't work as well. The way that you punch and your dominant hand, all that kind of stuff. He's better on his current side, on the left side. But if you have a whole off season to train and grow there, that'll hopefully open up Watt to move around some next year.
Yeah, I suspect as the offseason moves forward and we get a video or two from Wisconsin with him and the guys out there training, maybe we'll see a little bit of work from that other side of going around the bags and whatnot, and probably the reports from either OTAs or mandatory minicamp. Maybe we'll start surfacing that he's working on things from the other side. And, obviously when we get into next season, I would suspect, whatever the percentage might be, 20-25% snaps of him switching sides.
Yeah, I also think, because I get the value in moving around. If they want to do a little bit of that, that's fine. But Watt has still built a Hall of Fame career by being basically a one-side kind of a guy. So what other changes can there be? I think one, and there's always pros and cons and nuance and discussions about these things, but you got to blitz more. If you don't want TJ Watt to get chipped and double-teamed and triple-teamed, you got to send in more than 4 people. If you're sending 4, the protection can really focus in on Watt. If you're sending 5 or just more creative blitzes, you're going to stress that protection more. You're going to create more one-on-one matchups. Now, Pittsburgh did blitz a little bit more later in the season, but their blitz rate was still, I think, the 4th lowest we've tracked since 2014. And so I think there are more ways to unlock Watt than just moving him around. All right, a couple more questions. We got a bunch more questions here. Captain Spartan Dave, this one right up your alley. What measurable should I be looking for in the Steelers' 3-4 defensive end role, and what are some other things I should look for at the position?
Well, I mean, you've got the old what the Steelers look for report that'll be coming this offseason. But, I mean, generally what we kind of start looking through the measurables at are the guys that are like 6'3" at least or taller, guys that are at least, 285 at a minimum to like 315 or 320 in the weight category. Obviously the arm length, what do we usually look at? 33 and a half on the arms.
Bar has dropped with some picks like Loudermilk and Lee. I would say 32, which is a pretty low bar at this point, but they seem to sacrifice some length. I'll pull up the look for study from last year as you talk. Go ahead.
I think I always look for those 6'4" better guys, 6'3" and a half, 6'3" and 6'8" or taller, and those guys that are closer to the 300 pound mark. And then obviously look at the hand size and the arm length and all like that. Alex is pulling this up right now.
Yeah, it should be on screen for you, everybody.
What do you got? 6'3" and a half. Or 6'3" and 5/8 there, 280 or better. Obviously, we'll get the 40 times and the 10-yard split times when we get into the combine. The arm length of 32 inches, the bench. Look, copy and paste that. To start with, and obviously once you get into the combine measurables, but you can just start with the height, weight, and arm length coming out of the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, and then obviously look, once you build a small list of the guys that fit that, then just go watch the tape. Whatever you can, even if it's just TV tape. Watch that and get a sense of how much the guy moved around. Was he just primarily a nose guy? Was he mostly just a one tech or a nose guy? How far out did he go? Where was he most effective? Was he able to be effective in all those spots? How was he as a run defender versus being a pass rusher? Hey, you just start going through it and all like that. I mean, overall, you're not going to you'll build a longer list this offseason than you've built in a while when it comes to these guys overall, and that's good when it comes, especially the Steelers have a need on that. But I think as Alex shows right there, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 that met a lot of the criteria there.
Every box. Yeah, this was every box.
Okay, and lo and behold, they drafted one of them, didn't they?
That was Logan Lee. So the method works to some degree. Yeah, basically it's a size profile. If you look at the athleticism in our look for study, and we'll have to see how Lee changes that, if at all. He may slightly athleticism lower on their list of needs. They just want that size profile, like you said, basically 6'4", 280 plus, and typically heavier than that. Length, again, has been something they've been willing to sacrifice for that size and height and weight. But we'll see. Good D-line class. Really want to watch out for Derek Harmon from Oregon. I think it's a guy that really could fit that 3-4 end role that Pittsburgh could be looking for.
Harmon, he's which game is he? Is he at the Shrine?
Don't think he's attending either. I don't believe.
Okay.
He was not at the. Don't believe he's at the Senior Bowl. I could be wrong, but I didn't see him on the list of measurables.
You and I talked about Ty Robinson this morning out of Nebraska, and at the Senior Bowl, looks like he measured in shorter than what we thought he would at 6'4" and 7/8", which obviously isn't bad. 296 pounds. He looks every bit of 296 pounds on tape. 10-inch hands, which is obviously good. 32.5-inch arms. I would have thought the arms would have maybe been a little bit longer than that. So I still think at its core, he's like a 3rd, 4th round kind of guy.
He's still checking every box just based off of those height, weight, arm length. He does so far. Checked every box. That's a good place to start. And as long as he's not a terrible athlete, and depending on how our data changes, which again, it may be impacted by the Lee selection slightly, good chance he'll be one of those every box guys we'll be talking about come mid-April.
Yeah, and if you guys listening are looking for somebody to watch on either TV or all 22 tape over the next couple of days, go pull up the Nebraska tape. Go pull up the Nebraska versus Ohio State game. Tell me what you think about that.
There you go. Got a $1 super chat from Anthony. He says, can you please answer what's the situation with Fields and Kyle Allen staying as Steelers? They're both free agents, as is Russell Wilson. The entire quarterback room is slated to hit free agency, as Art Rooney said, as we talked about Anthony, his preferences for one of those guys to re-sign seem to maybe show more intrigue with Fields than Wilson, but I don't want to read too much into it. Allen, we'll see. Could he come back, compete? Sure. They did add Skylar Thompson, which kind of feels like a Kyle Allen, a guy with some experience. Allen has a bit more, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I'm sure if Allen would like to come back for basically the minimum, Pittsburgh would not mind that. Just quickly, Dave, and I know pieces of interviews from Rooney gets, it's here, it's there. He's doing a whole tour. He's going to, I'm sure, talk to more people throughout the rest of the week. How much of Russell Wilson was discussed with Art Rooney today?
He was mentioned a lot in the same sentence as when talking about both quarterbacks, but not specifically.
Right. And so, again, I think back to the Mike Tomlin year-end press conference, very little about Russell Wilson. A couple comments, but not much, and generally in a vaguer sense of, we have the right guys or all that kind of stuff. Less about Wilson himself. Felt like the same with Art Rooney. It's been a lot of Justin Fields. Now, again, is that just because of the questions that are being asked and Fields is more tantalizing than Russ? I don't know. But just curious to see, to me, little commentary about this team's starting quarterback to end 2024.
True.
A couple of things. I'll just kind of do some quick questions and responses. Then we'll kind of scroll back up and get the people who asked earlier. MC said trade Fields to the Panthers. Fields is a pending free agent. You're not going to be able to trade that guy. So that's not on the table. Vegas TJG, question for you, Dave. When does the salary cap for 2025 get announced? Rough timetable on that?
Usually right before the start of the new league year, probably about a week or two. Once the combine comes, I think the earliest we've seen it is right at the combine. I'm willing to bet it's going to be after the combine again. Usually you get the firm number a week or two before the actual start of the new league year. Now, teams will have a good idea of what it will be, obviously, prior to the start of the new couple of weeks out there. But it's not official right now. A lot of people are speculating that the number is going to be somewhere between, I think, 272.5 to what was the high end, 278.5 or something. So you'll see some people use. I think I'm using the low end right now in my tracking just to be on the safe side. I think I'm using 272.5, but it is not set in stone yet. We won't know for at least probably until the combine, probably a little bit later.
And remember, last year's cap number came in above even high expectations for what it would be. And so I can't rule that out, being 280 something in 2025. We'll just have to wait and see. Anthony, Cap, and Spartan, no problem. Happy to address your questions. Thank you for being here. Jason, $5 super chat says, sorry, I forgot earlier. He's got to do his traditional hello, Daleks. Okay, first things first. Silverback was right, referring to James Harrison's recent critiques of the team. His question, though, for Jason is, so with no changes, what's the quickest route to a playoff win? Well, he's saying at least just playoff win, not Super Bowl contending status. I think get better in the trenches. The O-line's got to be better, which will help the run game, help the quarterback, just help the offense in general, of course, and get better with the D-line, better pass rush, better run defense, and hopefully if you can get just moderate quarterback play and just kind of get things to go your way in a wild card round, that's probably enough to put you in position to win a playoff game.
Yeah, you got to be better on both sides of the line, for sure.
In situational football, Pittsburgh worst on first down, worst in short yardage moments, all that kind of stuff really hurt their red zone offense, etc.
Right.
All right, let me scroll back up here. Got 104 people in the chat. Appreciate that. Didn't even have time to really send it on social media today, so thank you guys for showing up. Just one last call out for you guys to hit the like button and subscribe. And, of course, check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. I'm going to hopefully do some more videos here this upcoming week, maybe one on Broderick Jones, some things he's got to work on as I kind of transition into our off-season video content. Scrolling back up, trying to find where I last left off. Knight Rider 16, how can you look at the change the Eagles defense made with a new DC and keep Terrell Austin? We had a chance to get Vic Fangio too. This is something I've said before, and I think it's the harsh reality. So long as Mike Tomlin's the head coach, you're not going to get a top-tier DC like Vic Fangio, because that's a guy that's going to want to run his defense himself. He goes to Philadelphia because he can run the defense because Nick Sirianni is an offensive guy. Same with Miami with McDaniel down there. And so I don't think you're going to be able to pull in a top-tier DC because he can go somewhere where most teams are offensive-minded head coaches and go run his defense as opposed to playing second fiddle behind Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I think you explained that well. And I mean, look, get all the complaining out of your system now about head coach and the coordinators and all like that, because it certainly feels like we're headed for a redo of and with very minimal coaching staff changes. I mean, we'll see obviously what happens with a guy maybe like Dunbar. He's been discussed. I take away from Rooney's talk today is there's going to probably be some coaching staff changes, but not going to be probably the ones that people want to have done. So I mean, you can ask the questions and we can try to guess why they haven't done this or why they didn't go this direction. But at some point, we're just going to have to accept the fact that this is what the coaching staff is going to probably be, and then just move on until we're talking about it next year.
Mike Adesso, and I believe another listener asked this question, and I'm just kind of looking for maybe a general framework here, Dave. But Mike says, Dave, what would a TJ Watt extension look like? Do you think they may try to get ahead of Miles and Micah Parsons extensions first?
Boy, it's better to strike early than to strike late, right? But there's also two sides of this thing, and you just can't push the button and get it done. If you look at, let's look at positions overall and where some of these guys stand right now. You are, when it comes to edge rushers, Nick Bosa leads at $34 million. Josh Allen with the Jaguars, 28.2. Brian Burns, 28.2. And TJ Watt at 28.002, and behind him a little ways is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett obviously is going to be looking for a new deal this offseason, and he'll want more than Watt if he does not beat Watt to the table there. So it's going to be hard to keep TJ Watt under the $34 million. At this point, I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but he's probably angling to once again be the top paid edge rusher, if only for 5 minutes. That's probably the way he's going to angle at it. So right now, I think you're looking at a starting point at least 34.2. And if Myles Garrett beats him to the table here, then that will become the new number to hit. They could do any of it at any given time, especially from a cash and a cap perspective. So they're not waiting anything on other than the negotiation process. But the last time the negotiation, there's the whole guaranteed money. Are you going to go more than just the first year? Watt's going to say, well, you gave me basically 3 full years last time. Why aren't you going to do that this time? So I don't think it's going to happen earlier rather than later. We could be sitting here 2 weeks into training camp still wondering about this. So I don't know what to tell you about timing goes. I don't think it's going to get done early, and I think the market price, at least as we sit here right now, as much as you guys probably hate to hear this, the starting point is $34.2 million a year.
And if it does not get done by camp, is there another hold-in from TJ Watt? Remember, he held in last time.
Sure.
And it's hard to blame him for it. So we'll have to see. It's always interesting, Dave. And
that baby formula is expensive, man.
Yeah, that's diapers, man. The cost is going up. It's always interesting to see when that first domino falls, because everyone kind of wants to be the last to get paid, because that's when you get paid the most and get the jump guys. And so does Watt's camp say, we're going to sit back and see maybe Myles gets his deal done early to try to placate him because he's not happy right now. Maybe for some goodwill, man, the Dallas Cowboys could need some goodwill right now. Maybe they get Parsons done early, get him locked up, and Watt can kind of sneak in behind and beat those guys by $500,000 per year or something like that. So we'll see. Don't know when it could happen, but as you said, the longer you wait, the more the price tag and that meter starts to run and the cost goes up. All right, Thomas Sargent says, every Steelers wide receiver aside from George Pickens has been underwhelming. Does that put wide receivers coach Zach Guzani's job in question? It's always difficult to evaluate positional coaches. We attempt to do it, but there's a lot that we don't get to see, a lot of work behind the scenes. I just don't think there were a lot of good ingredients to cook with. If you're Zach Guzani, you had Pickens and not a whole lot else. And Calvin Austin progressed this year, was a breakout year for Austin, so I think Guzani does deserve some credit for that. But if you have a receiver room like Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller and Ben Skoranek and Roman Wilson gets hurt, like, what do you want the guy to do? So I don't want to make a bunch of excuses. I don't think it's an excuse, though. I just think this team needs receivers. That was abundantly clear from the moment they traded Deontay Johnson and never addressed it, never filled it well. I do not blame Guzani for that.
If you want to make a quality chicken salad, you got to have a quality chicken to work with, right?
Yeah, and they had quality chicken something else, as the saying goes.
Right.
Let's see, what else do we have here? How on earth do we ever miss out on Antoine Randall as a coach? That's from Brian Jonker. That's fair. I don't remember his whole career arc. And of course, he's in Chicago after going to Detroit. And when you connect with Ben Johnson and he gets the job in Chicago, then no surprise, Randall followed him there. Probably pay raise, more responsibility. Could he be an OC someday? We'll have to see. So yeah, it's fair. I don't know the whole story of his coaching start, Brian, but fair question. Terry Brown, Tomlin forced Russ and Arthur Smith, so how much falls on him for that issue? Yeah, Tomlin made the bold decision to turn to Russ when most people, including apparently, as Tomlin's even admitted in his own building, didn't want to make the change. Tomlin said he went Lone Ranger, and so when Wilson was shining, Tomlin, rightfully so, got praised for it, and when everything fell apart towards the end, Tomlin can wear some of that blame, absolutely.
All right, agreed.
Let's see, what else do we have here? We'll run a little past 8 today because we started late again. I apologize for that. Was Jones out of shape coming into camp? I think I remember hearing that at the time. I don't recall that. I think he was
banged
hurt.
Up, but
yeah, he hurt his elbow early in camp and had that brace on. I couldn't tell you conditioning, but he looked okay to me. I mean, he finished practice. He was
hardly ever on the injury report, was he? If ever?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's played through stuff, but he's not been on the report, hasn't missed time. He carries his weight well, so doesn't automatically mean you're in great football shape, but I'm not aware of conditioning stuff, but I probably couldn't speak to that the best. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Somebody asked about the current CBA. It runs through March of 2031.
But we can bet the NFL will get their 18 games well before that.
Before that, probably. Let's see.
Is it potentially going to happen for 25? Is that still a possibility, or is that ship kind of sailed?
I guess a lot will be determined at the spring meetings, right?
Yeah, that's true. I just wasn't sure how early that has to kind of get announced. I know Goodell talked about that's kind of where we're going. I don't know if there's a deadline. Obviously, you can't do it in like August and be like, here's 18 games. But I mean, the schedule comes out in May, so obviously that's kind of your deadline. I'm sure well before then.
We're about 7 years away, March of 2031 for the end of this CBA. Man, I'll be pushing. I'll be 60. Oh,
60's a
be
new
over
50.
60.
That's all right. Infinity, is Mekhi Becton a good comparison for trying Broderick Jones at guard in 2026 post Sayamalu? I wouldn't say so. Becton's much larger. He's a house. Jones' issue this year partially has been finishing and being nasty and physical enough, so I think moving him inside to guard would only amplify some of those issues. I really don't see a strong comparison there.
I agree. And we talked about this morning. If any of these tackles were going to move, not saying they will, but if any of either Jones or Fautano were to move, it'd probably be Fautano.
Yeah, I think of the two, that probably would seem more likely, but cross those bridges.
Likelihood is probably, obviously neither.
For this year,
I mean,
yeah.
If one was to move down the road, it would probably be Fautano.
McCormick was left guard in college. Say Molly was playing right guard in Philadelphia. Would it be smarter to flip them next year? I get it, and I understand, the frustration of Pittsburgh playing guys out of position, but McCormick did okay at right guard. Say Molly's been playing left guard. I'd keep it as is.
Yeah, and one of the things I talked about going into it was, man, how much all those snaps that McCormick played at left guard in college. Are you sure you want to move him over to right guard? And he looked comfortable there right out of the chute. Now you can talk about his play, falling off in the second half of the season there. That's fine, but he didn't look like a fish out of water there.
Right. And maybe this is inaccurate, but I wonder if Broderick Jones going to left tackle paired with, say, Malu could help a little bit. Not that it's a cure-all and Jones has to improve his technique and all that kind of stuff. And Jones, of course, played with James Daniels for the first 4 games this year before Daniels went down. But maybe having, Broderick Jones with that vet left guard could help him a little bit this year.
It better help him a lot. He needs to play a lot better.
Yeah, so I just say that to say that if you flipped him and you had McCormick and Jones on the left side like last year, got young guys, and I think Pittsburgh certainly had a lot of issues on the right side of the line dealing with stunts and twists and games when you had Jones and McCormick and even Frazier, the center, more in, say, Malu for their struggles, but they did a great job, I think, overall identifying and picking up stunts consistently. Let's see, Benton was overdrafted, but he still might develop into an average D lineman. I still hope he can be more than that. I think he took a step this year, but it wasn't the leap that we hoped it would be. Need to get that sack production up. I know that's not the end all, but 1 sack that came in Week 18, you're looking for more from a pass rush perspective.
Going to be interesting to see if they have to if they draft nose tackle or and end up kicking him outside more, and if that helps him.
Carl Dunbar said, I think, maybe going into this year that he had no intention of playing Benton out to defensive end. Benton has done that a little bit, but it's not been his sole position. So if Dunbar, hypothetically, and just pure hypothetical, if he gets replaced, would the team be more open to that, or would they just strong arm Dunbar and say we're kicking Benton out to base end? But
we'll see if Dunbar's even here in a couple more weeks.
Right, but Dunbar, I know, did say that no, Benton is a nose tackle, going to play nose tackle for us. Do you think Broderick just does not understand Meyer's technique? That's from Jason Williams. It's hard to say. I haven't seen a lot on.
Sometimes I wondered if he even knew the play or his assignments.
Sure.
There's a lot of chattering going on.
Well, there were clear examples of that. The Raiders game when Max Crosby came scot-free and Jones is going downfield like it's a run play. So there were certainly issues with that, no question.
I went on a play-by-play basis if he knew what his assignment was. There's a lot of talking going on with whoever the left guard was, which ended up being McCormick. I mean, the right guard most of the season there. I mean, look, I understand there's some chatter anyway, but there was a lot of talking going on.
Well, heck, I got to put together a cut-up of the number of time Broderick Jones went up to Zach Frazier after a play, including, I think, in that playoff game, and, said something to him and looked pretty pissed about it. Now I have no idea, who's in the right, who's in the wrong there. But, yeah, there was, as you said, a lot of that. So I think Jones just has to – I think confidence was an issue for him early in the season because he played like crap. He took a bunch of heat in the preseason, early in the year, the Denver game, gets benched, all that kind of stuff. I thought he kind of got his swagger back a little bit in the second half of the year, had the injury, lack of focus, lack of finish, poor technique. It's a lot of things. Does Meyer contribute? It's hard to say, but I wouldn't call that a root issue for Broderick Jones.
Look, people are going to run out here and say, Dave says Broderick Jones doesn't know the playbook. All I'm saying is just look at the tape. And you agree, right? There's a lot of chatter going on over there.
I mean, chatter can be good for two young guys, but I think there's other instances that we talked about where it's like the Denver game, the penalty-filled drive that Jones had, the one he didn't know the snap count. He went on 1, supposed to go on 2. And, you got to lock in, just basic stuff like that where you're just beating yourself.
Right.
Let's see. What else do we have? Try to find some new people, some new questions to round out tonight's stream. Appreciate that. Ton of questions in the chat, so really happy to see that. Any standouts from the Shrine Bowl? I'm sure we'll get the Shrine Bowl guys back a couple of days and get those guys in the pod to give their recaps. Sure. But I think Kobe Bryant, the corner from Kansas, Kyle McCord, the quarterback, former Ohio State kid from Syracuse, those guys impressed, but we'll let the Shrine guys talk about it on the podcast in the next week or so.
Yeah, what do we like to call those segments? Round tables and all like that we do every year. And in Michigan, in Walker, Kenneth from Michigan, the nose tackle down, or Grant, he's down there. Yeah, so we'll have plenty of time to. I haven't even got a chance to look at the all 22 from the practices coming out just yet. So we'll go through those as well too, and we'll have those guys on both from the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, and have round table discussions, talk about as many prospects as we can in a short amount of time.
Jonathan Harvey, some billionaire needs to buy the Steelers from the dreary and dull Rooneys. Good luck with that. Can't get Bob Nutton to sell the team. I don't think we're going to get Art Rooney to sell the team either there, Jonathan.
Better get busy with the billboards.
Yeah, get that lemonade stand going. Maybe that'll get some money raised. What else do we have here? Jared, thank you for the kind comments. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. I'm just looking for some questions that we can get to. Is Tomlin the Jerry Jones of coaches? There's a question from you from Afton.
I'm not getting.
I guess the Dallas has been a stagnant team. No NFC title game since '96. They spin their wheels, but there's a lot of fanfare about them.
Call it whatever you want to call it. They haven't won a playoff game since the 2016 season. You call it whatever fits you, and rightfully so. Until this team wins a playoff game again, you can call it whatever you think is appropriate.
I compare him to Tony Dungy. He is exactly like his mentor. Really well respected. Players like him. Just a good guy, a good coach, but really couldn't get it done in the playoffs. Had one run, got one ring, and that was basically it. I mean, if you look at their records and their arcs, very similar tracks from Rooney and Tomlin and Dungy, excuse me. Mike says, do you think TJ's age and slight dip in production may bring down his value, though? That's hard to believe that, even with still TJ Watt.
Yeah, good luck. I mean, I'm all for it, but they're all about getting more than the next guy got.
Vegas, what's the temp there, Alex? It's a perfect 50 here. I'm showing 30, which is better than the 0 we had last week. I'll take it.
51 out here in the desert.
Oh. Are you in Vegas? The Vegas TJ. I'm not saying if you're in Vegas, but yeah, Vegas TJG would also, I assume, be in Vegas. So there you go. Okay. That's the connection there. Jason Williams excited about Roman Wilson 2025. I don't know. I mean,
you have to see it because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin Austin bounced back, but I had taken a peek mid-season at like receivers in Pittsburgh who didn't catch a pass their rookie year or caught like 5 or fewer passes. The history's not good. Now, that's just history, but, you look at Sammy Coates, I think Willie Reed. Remember, Willie Reed was one of them. Mm-hmm. So now Wilson was hurt, and you can have the reasons for it. We'll see. I just want to see him. I want to see him play a game. Like, I'm going to do with the whole practice, or playoffs. That's what I'm trying to do here. I just want to win a game. I just want to see Roman Wilson in a game and kind of go from there.
Look, it's okay as a fan just to try to be on the optimistic side, but we got to see him on the field before we can draw any. I mean, we got to see him play.
Yeah. Ben Duty, do you think the O-line issues are more of a coaching issue or the players being outmatched? It's probably a bit of both. I think it was a young group that was tired and wore down this year, and Jones had his struggles, and they had some injury issues early in the season, but it was a young group that played like a young group. Mm-hmm. But it has to get better. I mean, that excuse certainly can't go on really any longer. Are there any other Rooney family members in line to take over? Yes, there is. Matthew Marks, he's written about this a couple times. It is Daniel Martin Rooney, who I think right now does some of the business and marketing side. I know he's been a big face of the Ireland push to play a game there, which will probably happen in 2025. And so I believe that is the expectation for who would eventually replace Art II would be Daniel Martin Rooney. All right, what else do we have here? Just a super chat coming in. Josh Miller, $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Josh. As it stands, do you think Russ is back in 25? Putting us on the spot. That was a quick no. You're pretty confident, or was that just a no?
I mean, just all the signs pointing up, and with the reading in between the lines with what Rooney said today, it doesn't feel like Russell Wilson's going to be back.
I'm going to say no, too, although for what it's worth, Jerry Dulac says he's hearing that maybe Russ's odds of staying are increasing, although I do wonder, is that just kind of based off Russ saying last week he had some conversations with the team, but Jerry Dulac is not convinced that Russ is going to be gone. I'll say no, but I'm a little less. I'm generally more hedgy, but I'm less confident than you in that no.
Okay.
Let's see. Anything else here quickly? Would you rather sign Pickens to a big $24 to $30 million a year contract or trade him and draft more receivers? If you're giving me only those two options and only those two and keeping him for his rookie season, his last year of his rookie deal is not an option, I would say trade him. I just can't justify giving this guy a long-term deal right now.
Same. You know which way I'm coming in on that.
I mean, I think
he's very, very talented. I just don't. I think from an attitude perspective and all like that, if you could have got him moving in a better direction by now, I think he would have already been that way. And look, there's wide receivers are divas. Yeah, I get it, but he seems to be a headache and all. So if I could trade him right now and get a nice return and try to restock that room right now, especially while I don't have a franchise quarterback, I would do it.
And apparently Dulac says he leans towards Fields back now today too. So all right.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Jerry is maybe a little finger in the wind. All right, let me ask you this. We'll kind of end this way. What do you think actually happens to George Pickens this year? Not what you want, not what would be ideal. Is it trade? Is it stay or extension? Those are the three options.
I don't think he's going to get extended. I think it comes down to, and also I don't think they're just going to quote unquote give him away either. Sure. But if they get the right deal, I think he's gone. My mind races thinking what the rest of the summer is going to look like if you don't trade him by the draft, and the plan is not to give him an extension. And then going into the season with that, I think you're asking for a lot more of what you've gotten so far.
I think he stays. I think nothing happens in terms of trade or contract. I think a lot will happen in terms of controversy and social media stuff and mini Brandon Ayuk, maybe just Brandon Ayuk 2.0, but internally the calls coming from inside the house kind of a thing. But end of the day, if Pittsburgh does not want to trade him, Pickens has no choice. He's got to play it out. He's got to have a good year to cash in for 2026. And Pittsburgh can still dangle that sword you talk about, the franchise tag, if Pickens has a great season. And although Pickens made plays this year, he didn't have a monster season, had 900 yards, 3 touchdowns, and caught 58 passes. So he didn't have like a Jamar Chase, 1,800 yard, 14 touchdown, 100 catch season that almost demands an extension itself. And so, yeah, Pickens will kick and scream and probably do whatever. But at the end of the day, he's kind of stuck. Pittsburgh holds all the cards. And the dude's got to show up for week 1 and have a really good year because he's got to play well to get paid in 26.
Right, but he is scheduled to earn at this point, thanks to the proven performance escalator, a little bit more than $3.5 million. He's not going to be happy about having to play for $3.5 million.
I understand, but at the end of the day, you want to get paid, you got to play.
Right.
And you can hold in all you want, but we
better not get fined either. Whittle that away with fines.
Yeah, probably won't hold out. But
no, I'm talking about fines on the field.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness, he's racked up so much. I mean, reportedly last year was $200K if you combine the on-field fines with reportedly some of the stuff from the team and unreported fines from the league. This year it was like $91,000 in just the on-field reported fines. He got fined publicly a lot less than that in 23. It was like $30,000, I think. And so if he had a similar undisclosed fine amount, and from the reports about how late he is, probably racking up some good fines, he may have lost another $200K in fines this year. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah,
now remember the listed fine amount he's probably not having to pay because of the 25% rule of the salary and all like that. I mean that's what they have to say he was fined because that's what the standard fine amount is. But it's probably not what he actually had to pay because of the CBA language.
What was his base salary this year?
I mean it was obviously a lot less than $3.5 million.
Yeah, was it like 2?
I mean, I'll have to go back and.
I mean, I don't want to pull out the calculator, but I mean, he didn't get fined a lot of large amounts. It was just like repeated. Here's $11,000. Here's $6,000. Here's $11,000. I think it'd be like 22 was one of his highest fines. There weren't some of the 40,000 like Jalen Warren was getting popped with 2 years ago, and some guys got popped with this year. So I wonder if that would maybe just get under the 25% mark of his weekly game check?
Oh, I'm going to have to find out. I don't have my spreadsheet pulled up here. Let me see if I can get to it real quick. That's not it. Hold on. Let me see if this is it here. No, that's not it.
Over the cap might just have it.
No, because they've already moved on to next year, I think. Or it might be in history.
Being just on his contract page shows the previous years and the future years and the current years.
Let me see real quick here. History. Pickens, history. Oh, no, wait. It's right here. 1.3.
Okay, so
1.3 million in 2024. So I don't think he could be fined if you divide, you divide that into game checks and then percentage of game checks and all.
Yeah, that's fair. But anyway, point is he's getting fined a bunch, and that just kind of speaks to you can't justify extending this guy. And
right.
Rooney's comments really seem to cement that today. And Rooney signs those checks, and so if he doesn't want to do it, they ain't doing it.
Right.
All right, let's try to get to one more question here, then we'll close things out. Appreciate everybody that stopped by. Let's see, anything new that came in? I'm trying to see. Jason Williams, I saw one from you. Let me go back and find it. Corliss Waitman or Cameron Johnston? A little punter question to end things. Waitman signed a 2-year deal. He's going to go to camp. Johnston's going to hopefully recover. They're going to evaluate his health and his performance this summer and go from there. It's going to be to be determined.
And you're probably not going to see Cameron Johnston really starting to punt until training camp, if that.
Right. Yeah, I don't think he'll probably do much. I mean, I don't know, but I doubt he'll do much in the spring.
Right.
And so, yeah, you're going to carry Waitman. The decision will not have to get made until the cut down date in August. And so, stay tuned. All right, going to wrap things up. Appreciate you guys being here and being a little patient at the start of today's episode, as Dave and I had a couple things to do in this kind of very busy Art Rooney-filled day. We'll talk about it more on the Wednesday show and any additional interviews and media events that Rooney does. So appreciate you guys being here. Dave, as always, thank you for being here as well.
And thank you for doing all you do and conducting these as you do every 2 weeks. And thank you for the great questions today. And peace and love, everybody. Have a great week.
All right, you can be sure to like this video and subscribe. There'll be an archive of this on Steelers Depot in just a little bit as well. So thank you so much for watching and being here, and we'll talk to you soon.